Welcome to Kev Talks, Real World Global Logistics. I'm Kevin Parkerson.
And I'm Kevin Higgins. Together we bring you over 60 years in combined experience in global logistics.
In each episode, we'll dive into the latest industry trends, share practical tips, celebrate wins, and share stories from the logistics front lines, all while helping businesses optimize their logistics operations. Well, happy New Year. This is Kev Talks, first one for 2025, actually.
Holy cow.
Episode 11, believe it or not.
I can't believe it's 2025.
Dude, I say Happy New Year, and this is a question for you, Higgins. I've through the years, people have told me you can only say Happy New Year for a certain period of time, and then it's no longer applicable. I don't know if you ever heard that or what your rule is. Can you say Happy New Year all month? Can you just do it for the first week, or is that the first time you ever heard that?
I know it's the first time I've heard that. I'll say Happy New Year to June.
Right. I tell people I can say Happy New Year, however long I want in February if I need to.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I guess we could incorporate it all the way through Chinese New Year.
Yeah. Well, that brings up a great topic I wanted you and I to talk a little bit about. But let's talk a little bit about 2024. Believe it or not, it is done. It's in the bag, dude, and it's been a wild ride. As you think about 2024, industry wide, anything surprise you, or what? How do you assess 2024?
Man, I tell you what, I think just looking at 2024, I was surprised at how surprised I always was. It just seemed to be.
You should not be surprised.
It seemed to be we were in a constant state of disruption, and learning and reaction, stayed in pretty much a reactive state, and getting closer to the end of the year, I think people started looking at, I got to plan. I have to plan. I got to start planning for all of these things. And, some of the things that we talked about is, you used to have, an event that happened once every, 2-3 years that we had to deal with. And it just seems like for the past few years, especially this year, we were just constantly dealing with situations.
Yeah. And that's not a surprise, though, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think what surprised me is that we didn't have another surprise to layer on to all the other issues. I think a lot of people thought, what else is coming? And, outside of, we'll talk about 2025 and actually just the month of January, Kevin, the month of January and what's coming up. We'll talk about the trifecta. But what really surprised me, with 2024 was that there was not another event outside of the ones that everyone's been talking about. Mm. Everyone's been talking about the election, and now I think now that the election is over, it's definitely, a potential new tariff environment. ILA, it happened in 2024. Mm-hmm. It's going to likely happen again, or it's going to be, a consideration, an event. And then the trifecta, is Chinese New Year and it being earlier. Yeah. Outside of, I'm not even now what's become just common is Red Sea. We're over 400 days of dealing with the Red Sea and the reroutes, which that may be the norm going forward. But we're not even really talking about that. It's a side conversation outside of tariffs. And, like I said, it's just the month of January. February comes in and, people aren't really talking about Gemini, Maerks and Hapag. No. And, what does that mean? Is that good? Is that bad? What does it mean? That'll be really interesting. And then, depending on what happens in January with ILA and tariffs, and the resurgence back of volume after Chinese New Year, what does the spring look like? Then we get into summer months and peak again. And here we go.
Well, I think that's, coupling what you said with, my my thoughts on just this constant state of disruption. It feels like the past 4 years have just been rolled into one year for me, or it's just like my time, my memory of everything is kind of blending together.
Yeah.
For the past 4 years, we started dealing with, you know, COVID, and then everything that we had to deal with through that, and then it just feels like it's just all one year. You know what I mean?
No, it really it is. I mean, it kind of has been just one thing after another.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are kind of bucketizing that,
Yeah.
putting it
I
into
like that.
that bucket
Yeah.
of 4 years. And it'll be really interesting. Does 2025, do we turn the corner a little bit? And what's going to allow us to do that? But, again, I think 2024 resiliency, was probably what a brand for 2024, 2025. I think you're going to see a lot of the same. I'm really excited about just personally about 2025, my consulting business, Kev Talks. We've got a lot of great things coming in 2025. This is, I mentioned earlier, this is the first episode of
Yep.
2025. I'm happy to announce that we will have a weekly episode starting. We actually kind of started it last week, but every Friday in the month of 2025, we plan to have a new episode. Some will have guests. Some you will be stuck with
You're
the two
stuck with us.
Kevins and two Ferns. But we will. We're really excited about the content that we already have planned. The phenomenal guests that are upcoming, and we'd love to get feedback. On the topics, potential guests that you'd like to hear. We've got a lot of great ones planned, but would love to get the feedback as well.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really excited about this year. I mean, you're talking about your business, and I got to tell you, I want to, I probably, if I haven't told you this, I've intended to tell you this. Just your focus and your efforts on putting out good content, on the various platforms, specifically LinkedIn, and just continuing to educate the industry on what's going on out there and providing that service and value. I mean, you just do a phenomenal job at that, and so you're to be commended for that. I've been super impressed with what you're doing and how you're growing your business. But there's a lot of really cool stuff. We're from a Swift B2B perspective, we're going to go live in early spring with
It's a big year for you. Yeah.
with version 1. We've been working hard this year, and so we're really, really, really excited about that. And I'm anxious to see, just from a technology perspective, what blooms this year, because there is a lot of stuff going on. Agentic AI is huge, and it's deploying technology is becoming more rapid now. So I'm incredibly excited about what's going to happen from a technology perspective this year, and how people are going to use that to build resiliency into their networks and their supply chain. So super, super excited about all of that. There's some really, really cool platforms coming up out there, and it's not going to take, millions and billions of dollars from PE firms to do it. We're going to see some pretty exciting things coming out this year.
Yeah, I agree, and I think this forum for us has really allowed us to highlight the things that we're seeing in the industry, the things that we've learned, but the new things that are out there, and that's what I'm really excited about, is bringing forward the new offerings, new businesses, that enhance, the supply chain.
Yeah,
And really excited about what I'm learning, as well as what is going on in the industry, that we can bring forward, in Kev Talks.
Yeah.
So, with that, there's a lot of conferences and forums, that
Coming
you and
up.
I will be attending, that
Yep.
we will be highlighting, that we will be networking with industry leaders. I'm really excited about that aspect of Kev Talks as well. So really excited about 2025.
Yeah, and let's just go ahead and put it out there. Well, there's a lot of conferences coming up, so there's the NRF coming up. There's Manifest coming up. There's RELA. There's TPM. There's all these conferences out there, and our listener base is growing. And if there's people out there that want us to come to those conferences, you need to hit us up, and let's work out a deal, and we'll show up at. We're going to be at the ones that we can be at, but if there's an opportunity for us to be out there, and you'd like us to promote something, then hit one of us up. Let's make it happen.
Absolutely. Kevin, I'm glad you brought that up. That's one of the things as you and I sat down and talked about doing Kev Talks, real world global logistics, that we would have the opportunity to do exactly that. And we are. 2025, we will be on the road quite a bit. We'll be highlighting Northwest Arkansas,
Absolutely.
So we're not going to be on the road too much. We're both based here in Northwest Arkansas, and there is a phenomenal supply chain network here in Northwest Arkansas.
Yep.
And we will be highlighting a lot of those thought leaders, businesses, conferences, forums, that are based here in Northwest Arkansas. And I can tell you there are a ton of those. And there's some really, really good ones that we would love, to participate in. We will be attending, but look forward to sharing a lot more about that in the coming weeks and coming months as we go through 2025.
This place is a transportation mecca.
It really is.
Yeah,
it really is. That's why we're here, dude.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, listen, again, we talked it real briefly about, 2025 and the trifecta. I'd love to get your take. One that's upcoming right now. We've been talking a lot about tariffs. We talked a while, one of our first guests on Kev Talks was talking specifically back in September about ILA, and that's upcoming in the next couple of weeks. Yep. A lot has been talked about since September. Obviously the extension into January 15th. I'd love to get your take and your perspective. And more importantly, if you were in the trenches right now at a BCO, how would you be planning? What would you be doing? What should you be doing?
Well, excuse me. You want to talk specifically about tariffs or about what January 15th?
I would go with ILA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you should have been planning already that this is going to happen. That
I think most are.
Yeah. And I think most people are too, but that's what I would be. I would be looking at, what are my alternatives? And it's tough because you've got, there's a pretty broad reach of ILA, down the East Coast into the Gulf, and you can't overwhelm one of the other ports. We've seen that happen before. So, your planning that you had around the October timeline just continued into the January timeline. And what are you going to do? But there's a lot to that. You've got to be talking to your legislators and everybody else, and what's going to happen. And it's a new administration, even though the inauguration isn't coming until 5 days later, there's a lot of influence that's happening right there. And so there's a point that we're probably going to see a disruption, and how long it's going to take before something gives in. We didn't go that long in October, so will we go that long in January? Probably not. But both sides are pretty firm in their positions, and so hopefully they're continuing to try to have some conversations. But you've got to know what's in motion. What products in motion. You've got to know what's going to be impacted long term. A lot of people are front loading. We're seeing that in some of the data that's being presented, that you're seeing inventory coming in early and being held. I mean, I was in Sam's Club yesterday. They got spring set, right? They've already got all of their some of their spring and summer stuff that's already in the clubs. So you can plan and just be communicating to your merchants what's going on, and communicating up and telling everybody what's in motion, what's impacted, know what dollars are affected. something's going to happen. It's tough. You can't bring everything in early, and you can't shift it all. So, I feel for those folks that are in the trenches like you and I once were, and trying to plan through a lot of this stuff, because they're front loading because of the tariffs too. I mean, you don't want to take away from that, because there is a potential, cost impact to all of that as well. So.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think what really, for me, maybe complicates it a little bit is that there's so much converging all in, a short period of time.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, the month of January, and what I would do is I would make sure that I dust off those plans. I'd review those plans over and over again. And are they the same plans that you had back for September, October? And, if they are, I think the environment's a bit different. And meaning, I think, if and when there is a disruption, I think it could be longer than what you have originally planned for. And then the biggest thing is if you've done some reroutes, if you are now, heavier West Coast versus East Coast for obvious reasons, a lot of people are doing that. And what does that cause? That causes, the typical West Coast congestion. And you can't just rest on your operations of how it was been managed in the past. You've got to really focus in on strategically on and the operations, the day to day of how you're going to push through volume through the West Coast. And it can be done, but it can't be done without a very, very surgical plan and partnership with every party, your broker, your dray provider, your freight forwarder, your carrier, your port terminal, your warehouse. Everybody has to be lockstep in those plans. And you've had to have communicated what that is, and not January 14th.
Yeah.
I know it's the holidays. A lot of people are waiting until they can get back on, next Monday, that's really too late.
Yeah.
So,
I'm glad you said what you said. You're talking about partnership, because that was something that I wanted to say as well. Is, with everything that's going on, this constant state that that the supply chain is in, it's so important right now to make sure that you have those relationships, and that you are customer of choice. I will say that I firmly believe that one of the reasons that we were able to do what we did back in the day, speaking specifically when I was at Walmart, and some of the things that we went through, is because we had relationships, and we worked hard at those relationships. And I think communicating with every one of your suppliers, your providers, your partners in the supply chain, making sure that they know what your plan is, making sure that they know what you're struggling with, so that they can become part of the solution. So that when things do happen, that it's easy. Everybody knows what your plan is and how to execute a part of your plan. Because if you just shift cargo, and then all of a sudden your dray provider on the West Coast, doubles their volume, which doubles the intermodal volume that they're going to have, which doubles the need for dock doors and things like that, it's going to be bad. So that communication and that integration of your partners into your plan is incredibly important, now and forever, in my opinion.
completely agree. It sounds really basic and simple, and it is, but you got to do it. You should be doing that. And if you don't, you will be behind. You will not have a competitive advantage. We'll use all those buzzwords, but you're looking to be different. And you want to get your cargo through, and there's going to be tons of cargo that is needing to get through East Coast and West. But I think the biggest part is realizing and understanding that it's a different environment. January sometimes is not a heavy volume month, and it's a different environment. So just being able to communicate your expectations and, partnering with the right providers. They're able, they're capable, they're willing, but you've got to communicate. So I think that's going to be the biggest key, for January. And like I said earlier, then we get into February, and depending on what transpires in January. There could be congestion, things of that nature that bleed into February. You've got then, factories are back. Chinese New Year is over. You've got spring cargo, summer cargo that's actually arriving, and that's still in a pull forward. And oh, by the way, now we've got a tariff environment that may be a bit different than what we had planned for.
Right.
So, and then what is the next one? What else is going to happen in 2025? We've talked about Red Sea. That will continue. I think everyone has a really good plan with that. I'm really interested in, the perspective of the industry a little bit more about Gemini, and Maersk and Hapag. And I know in your career, it was things like that weren't as big a concern. It was a VSA that you were really focused on.
And those were few and far between.
Yeah.
I mean, they were really few and far between. I tried to go back in my memory, and I know I've been doing this for a minute, but used to be, and I don't think a lot of people realize this, used to be if you put a box on a Maersk ship, it went to the Maersk terminal, right? And it was a Maersk box on a Maersk ship, Sealand box on a Sealand ship, Costco box on a Costco ship, and you return the Sealand box to Pier J to the Sealand terminal. You return the Maersk box to the new Maersk terminal, and then you started getting these VSAs, these vessel sharing agreements. And I can't remember. I was trying to think. It was mid to later 90s maybe when we started seeing some VSAs, right? And then now you have all of these alliances, and you can take this box there and this box there, but no, we need this box over at this terminal because they're calling in 3 different places. And there's
lots of benefits to it. I mean,
there's a lot of
to it.
Yeah,
but there's some benefits to what you're describing as well.
Yeah,
for a BCO, but you just need to be aware, and that needs to be a part of your planning, not just strategy, but day-to-day operations of what you just described.
Yeah, and it affects everybody in your supply chain when you start thinking about that. I mean, thankfully, we're starting to see, I think, was it Track just announced Trucker Choice chassis. I mean, the chassis situation on the West Coast is that had complicated things for a long time because, there was, certain carriers got certain chassis providers got certain carriers volume. And then when it came off, even at the same terminal, it was kind of wonky. And we're starting to see that clean itself up a little bit, but it affects everything.
Yeah. Now that you bring up a great topic, chassis. I know that's near and dear to your heart.
Yeah.
That's not a one that you hear a lot of people talking about right now. However, that can easily change very, very quickly and could catch people off guard. So all of those things need to have a thought, a strategy, and a plan.
Yeah,
so
100%. Really yeah, 100%. Sorry, still have this holiday lagging cough every once in a while.
'Tis the season. Yes. Well, listen, I think this is, these topics that we're talking about are some of the topics that we're going to drill down. We just kind of scanned through some of these.
Yeah.
These are some of the topics that we're going to have some really, really good guests to help us kind of peel back some of the layers of some of these pretty in-depth topics that I know are near and dear as well to our audience and hopefully can help in the planning process. So 2025 is going to be a really, really good year, interesting year. Look for more topics and more guests upcoming.
I think we got a great slate of guest ideas, guests already lined up, and it'll be interesting circling back 12 months from now, KP, to see the impact of technology in everything that's going on. And it is a huge topic, talking about January 15th, the ILA discussion, right? It's referred to as automation, right? But technology in general can't. I'm going to be very curious to see what we see around AI, machine learning in efficiencies and productivity and visibility. You and I both know we got BCOs that are still planning their business on Excel spreadsheets, and how's all this going to happen? And do we get through the ILA discussion with some level of technology implementation? I'll take the risk and say there needs to be an open conversation with the ILA around safety and productivity and how we push more volume through these ports, which in turn benefits their members, utilizing technology and the right types of automation, not to deploy it just for the sake of deploying technology, but the right type of automation that improves safety and efficiencies. And we can't look at it like we're cutting jobs. We got to look at it like we've got a finite amount of space that we need to squeeze more volume through. So how do we do that collectively and do it the right way that benefits the citizens of the United States, the consumers in this country? So I want to circle back around 12 months from now and see what kind of, what's actually happened with technology and automation.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident, Kevin, that we will have this topic will be a very frequent topic, and it will be very interesting. I'll say it could be very pivotal in regards to how the industry approaches automation. In the month of January, specifically with the ILA, I think it could be very pivotal, and it could be a key milestone as we look back at 2025. This time next year, I think it could be a pretty pivotal moment that will have cascading implications, on AI and technology and everything else throughout the industry, not just port terminal and automation. So 2025 could be a very, very interesting year. So
yeah, it's going to be for sure. I mean, it's already shaping up to be.
Yeah. Well, listen, I think this gets us to the end of our time today, this week. Look forward to hearing feedback from the audience, and look forward to bringing forward some really, really good topics and a guest in upcoming episodes starting every Friday through 2025. So thanks for listening.
All right. Talk to you guys soon. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Kev Talks, Real World Global Logistics. If today's discussion inspired you, don't forget to follow, subscribe, rate, and share our podcast.
Remember, every great journey in logistics starts with a single step forward. Let's continue working together to transform the industry.